and welcome to part 4, our grand finale of our Southern Illinois railfan adventure. Now we're going to be headed back to the UP today, but we're going to be going to a little bit different spot, somewhere we haven't been before. So let's begin making our way southwest, and we're going to be within earshot of the mighty Mississippi River. If you follow the UP Mount Vernon subdivision southwest out of Benton, you'll eventually come upon the small community of Gorham, Illinois. Gorham is where the UP Mount Vernon subdivision ends and connects to the UP Chester Subdivision at a Y. Most of the trains take the south leg of the Y towards Dexter, Missouri, but there are a few like the coal trains and one auto rack and manifest train that take the north leg of the Y and head towards St. Louis. We've arrived and there's a green signal on Main 2 for a southbound. First train of the day is a good one. It's an SD70M Duo. This train is UP MASNL daily manifest train from the ANS yard in East St. Louis headed to North Little Rock, Arkansas. So now we've seen one SD70M Duo, let's take a look at a little counter I have up at the top here. This counter is going to keep track of how many SD70Ms we catch on this adventure. Let's add our first 2 to the total. As MASNL clears, let's talk a little bit more about the UP Chester Subdivision. The Chester Sub is a vital link in UP's system, as it connects the St. Louis area with points on the southeast of the system via Dexter, Missouri, and then into Arkansas and eventually Texas and Louisiana. Going north to south, the Chester Subdivision begins at Dupont, Illinois, just outside of St. Louis in the St. Louis metro region. Heading south, the line parallels the Mississippi River on the Illinois side of the river until Thebes, where it crosses into Missouri. The line continues to Dexter, Missouri, where it splits off into 2 subdivisions, one towards Poplar Bluff and the other towards Jonesboro, Arkansas. Now, we have seen trains on the Jonesboro sub, most importantly the big boy, last September. When the line was built, it was actually used as a joint line between the Missouri Pacific and the St. Louis Southwestern, also known as the Cotton Belt. However, as mergers occurred and eventually UP and Missouri Pacific and Western Pacific all merged, and then eventually UP bought out Southern Pacific and its subsidiaries, including the St. Louis Southwestern, this line became all UP trackage. We've now moved down just south of Gorham in Oakwood Bottoms, as it's called. There's a nice national wildlife refuge around in that region, and I hear a train coming. a local heads north on Main 1 with another good EMD duo. And that's another ST70M leading for the counter. Now in most spots the Chester sub is double main, and this spot is no exception. Both mains are about to be hot as we're about to get a rolling meet. Racing down Main 1 is ZEGYC daily hotshot intermodal from Mesquite, Texas, just outside of Dallas, headed to G4 outside of Chicago, Illinois. And on Main 2, close to us, is the IDUMN intermodal train from Dubo, Illinois, headed to Marion, Arkansas, with yet another ST70M duo. More for the counter. After about an hour break in the action, ZEGYC breaks the silence. It's rather shorter than usual. Typically this train's pretty big with a DP. However, we only have 2 motors on the head end, and as you'll see, there's no DP. Now the local's coming back, and this time it has an even better leader than what it did before, a standard cab SD60. Now just a little bit before ZEGYC, we did attempt to begin making our way south, actually towards Missouri to eat lunch, when all of a sudden we saw a northbound that caught our attention. Coming north is UP MNLAS, the counterpart to the first train we saw in this video, and it has quite the consist. Not one, not two, but three, yes 3, UP SD70Ms, a 70M trio. This is just one of the many things we did not really expect to see when we came on this trip. What's funny is just a few days prior, NS I think 344 down near Birmingham had an SD70M trio that we didn't get to go for, and I told Clay or somebody, it's fine, we'll end up seeing a 70M trio on the Chester Sub when we go. Funny how things work out. Anyways, wow, 3 70Ms on one train, that's quite nice in 2025. Definitely unexpected. Following what was likely the train of the day, we made our way west across the Mississippi River into Missouri. As we crossed the river, John noticed a train on the BNSF River line which runs on the Missouri side of the Mississippi River. And this train had quite the leader. Southbound is what we believe to be BNSF H-GALMEM or GALMEM daily manifest train from Galesburg, Illinois, headed to Tennessee Yard in Memphis. The leader is a BNSF 5320, which is really interesting for multiple reasons. One, the nose and the radiator are still in the H2 paint, but the body actually has an H1 hood, what some might call a Franken unit. Now in the car ahead of us, Slater called it out as a Franken bonnet. However, Franken bonnet is 4729 because it has the actual like red and silver style paint with the other paints on it. That was kind of funny. And two, this unit is equipped with a Leslie RS3L horn, which was a very, very nice surprise. We actually heard it from the other side of the river at one point and thought it was just a BNSF local, because the river line actually is within earshot of the UP Chester Subdivision because it's literally just on the other side of the river. Anyways, it was really nice to find this also another surprise for the day. After GALMEM and then more importantly lunch, we made our way back east, back into Illinois. As we approached Wolf Lake, we thought we could hear a train, so we stopped off to pull off and see what it was all about. Coming south is a UP company loaded grain train. We did not get a symbol on this. It's very interesting now. I've seen a UP company grain train before I've seen an NS company grain train, and I live 15 minutes from an NS line. That's somewhat unfortunate, but oh well. I digress. We've made it back up to Gorham, and a northbound empty grain train, also somewhat company with Ferromex hoppers too, which was really interesting, has caught up to us. Let me tell you, my recommendation for the Chester Sub is to find you a spot and just sit there, because if you try to move around, you will probably miss at least one or two trains. On the way north, we would consistently hear an EOT and then look over in the trees and up there's a train going in the other direction. That happened to us a couple times as well in the morning time when we tried to go south. Of course, we saw MNLAS and turned right back around. Luckily, there was track work then, so that they had to stop the train for some southbounds, and we still missed a southbound or two out of that as well. So just find you a spot, be it Gorham, Oakwood Bottoms, Wolf Lake, Ware, a bunch of different spots, and just sit there and see all the traffic you can get. There's really not much of a need to move around unless there's not a lot of action going on. You can get plenty of trains on the Chester Sub, as we found out. I have PTSD still here in Alabama. Whenever I hear an EOT, I look and turn my head, and is there a train up beside me? Just because of this one little excursion right here. It's pretty funny. Remember how I said at the beginning that the north leg of the Y at Gorham doesn't usually get a lot of action? Well, the one daily train that takes the Y north towards A&S Yard is about to make the turn with another good leader. We made it back to Benton, and after dinner we saw another southbound was lined on the Mount Vernon sub, so we decided to go check it out. To no one's surprise at this time of night, it's UP MPRNL for the third time on this trip. I think this is the train we probably saw the most of. Anyways, we have a Gevo and a trail fail, our 10th 70M of the day. Now the next morning we woke up and planned to get rolling out back south, and then we saw another southbound was lined. So we finally went to the spot that we had been next to the whole time at our cabin, and we finally got to see a train there. At the spot affectionately nicknamed by some of the rail fans on this trip as Malibu, UP MTTPB makes its way south with our 11th SD70M in the last about 25 hours or so. Very nice train to be the last train of the trip. After MTTPB, we began to make our way south back home towards Alabama. So that's going to do it for this series. It's been a lot of fun being up in Illinois. It was a very good trip. We got to see a lot of good trains. And in the last just about 24 hours or so, 24 to 25 hours, we saw a whole lot of UP SD70Ms. In fact, we have a counter right up here. How many did we get? Wow, we got 11 in just about a little over 24 hours. Several leadings, several duos, several trios. Or no, not several trios, one trio. That was quite interesting to see as well. So with that, we're going to leave with the top 5 trains that we caught throughout the duration of this trip from parts 1 to part 4. So roll the tape. Number 5. Number 5 is BNSF 5320 leads H-GALMEM at Chaffee, Missouri, in large part due to the mismatched hoods and nose and radiator and the Leslie RS3L horn. Number 4. Number 4 is the UP local coming back at Oakwood Bottoms with a standard cab SD60 leading, something you don't see very often in 2025. Number 3. Number 3 is the UP SD70M Trio at Oakwood Bottoms on the UP Chester Sub. Now I know so far we're a little heavy on the UP Chester Sub action we've already seen in this video, but to be completely honest, we saw a lot of really cool stuff on this day, and a lot of that probably could have been on the list anyway, including the 1170Ms. This is that representative of the 1170Ms, is the Trio. Very rare to see a Trio in 2025. Number 2. Number 2 is the BNSF local at Vine Road in Cesar, Illinois, with a Santa Fe war bonnet, a B40-8W leading. This was a really nice surprise, and it was nice to finally see an original Santa Fe war bonnet leading. Now before we unveil number 1, let's take a look at a couple of honorable mentions. Number 1. To no one's surprise, number 1 is the Illinois Central Death Stars that we caught along the trip. More specifically for this shot, we're going to be using the Farina shot as the A408 with 2 Death Stars and 2 UP GEs past the grain elevator. This was one of my favorite shots of the whole trip. One of my main objectives for this trip, of course, was to see Death Stars, because the first time I came to Southern Illinois, that was the one thing I did not see, and we surpassed that goal within 45 minutes of being trackside Saturday morning. That left the rest of our trip wide open to find all sorts of really cool stuff, as you've seen throughout this entire series. Southern Illinois was great, and I'm looking forward to going back hopefully in the near future. And so that's going to do it for this series. We had a whole lot of fun in Illinois. It was a whole fun 4.5 days that we got to just spend together and watch trains and have a good time. It was a great time. Looking forward to eventually coming back up here. Hopefully it won't take 4 years this time. So anyways, hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you enjoyed the series. If you didn't get to see the series, I'll link each video in the description here below. Anyways, be sure to like the video if you liked it, and if you like the content that you've seen throughout this and throughout the rest of the parts of this series, be sure to subscribe to see more content just like this. Once again, thank you so much for watching. We're going to go back in time a little bit towards January, and we're going to be looking at some of our watching events we do as the River City Rail Club in our next video, so be on the lookout for that, and we will see you then. Have a good day.